On today's episode, we will be talking about the theory that says that at one point you will reach your level of incompetence, also known as the Peter Principle. My name is Bruno, and this is the Battle Plan. Now, many years ago, in 1997 to be exact, I was in Calgary, I read this great book called The Peter Principle, and it completely changed my approach to skill learning and reaching the next level. Now, let me explain. The Peter Principle is a concept in management developed by Laurence J. Peter, which observes that people in hierarchy tend to rise to their level of incompetence. So basically, employees are promoted based on their success in previous jobs until they reach a level at which they are no longer competent, as skills in one job do not necessarily translate to another. Now, we've seen this. I've seen it most often. The one that comes up to me really quick is in sales department. You have these great salesperson that are overreaching their quotas. They're really crushing everything. They're great team players and everything, and are suddenly being promoted to a management position within that team to manage the team and are totally not suited for that position, right? So we'll talk about this a little bit later, but let's continue on with this concept here. Now, the concept was explained in 1969 book, the one that I'm talking about, The Peter Principle by Dr. Peter and Raymond Hall. Now, Hall wrote the text based on Peter's research. Peter and Hall intended the book to be a satire, like something funny, and they have some really funny examples of how this translates across all parts of life and in the cities and, in humanity itself. But it became popular as it was seen to make a serious point about the shortcomings of how people are promoted within the organizations. Now, the Peter Principle has since been the subject of much commentary and research. The Peter Principle states that a person who is competent at their job will earn a promotion to a position that requires different skills. If the promoted person lacks the skills required for the new role, they will be incompetent at the new level and will not be promoted again, unless you're in a very big corporation or a big organization or the government or the military, which we will talk about. If the person is competent in the new role, they will be promoted again and will continue to be promoted until reaching a level at which they are incompetent. Now, being incompetent, the individual will not qualify for promotion again and so will remain stuck at this final placement, or what they call in the book, Peter's Plateau. Now, this outcome is inevitable. Given enough time and enough positions in the hierarchy to which competent employees may be promoted to, the Peter Principle is therefore expressed as, in hierarchy, every employee tends to rise to his level of incompetence. This leads to Peter's corollary. In time, every post tends to be occupied by an employee who is incompetent to carry out its duty. Now, in the book, in the first two chapters, Peter and Hall give various examples of Peter's Principle in action. Like I'm telling you, they are funny. It's really interesting. It blew my mind. In each case, the higher position required skills that were not required at the level immediately below. Now, for example, a competent school teacher may make a competent assistant principal, but then go on to be an incompetent principal. Now, the teacher was competent at educating children, and as assistant principal, he was good at dealing with the parents and other teachers, but as a principal, he was poor at maintaining good relationship with the school board and the superintendent. In the third chapter, Peter and Hall discuss apparent exceptions to this principle and then debunk them, which I really like when people can look at both sides of the medal and can argue even their own principle, because you need to be able to look at the whole picture here. One of these exceptions is when someone who is incompetent is still promoted anyway. They coined the phrase percussive sublimation. It's a pretty big word for this phenomenon of being kicked upstairs. However, it is only a pseudo promotion. a move from one unproductive position to another. This improves staff morale as other employees believe that they too can be promoted again. Another promotion, or pseudo-promotion, is the lateral arabesque, lateral promotion, if you will, when a person is moved out of the way and given a longer job titles. For me, I'm going to talk about the military system here, where in the military, my experience has been that, I was told that when I just got in, that if you are incompetent in a position, like we're going to go from the lowest rank here, when you're a soldier, you're a good soldier, then you get promoted to being a corporal, and you start taking on some leadership roles, and then you got to be promoted. And the first kind of real promotion within the Canadian Forces anyway is the Master Corporal, Master Seaman position, which is you're now a leader, a recognized leader. And sometimes some people reach that level of incompetence, and it's really, really short-sighted, because what happens is that the person gets promoted out of the position to a higher rank, now to the rank of sergeant, and they get posted to this place where somebody immediately thinks that their impact won't be as crucial or as impactful. And they get promoted there. But what happens is that they're basically passing the buck to the next posting. And then the next posting, after a few months or a year or so, really find out that the person in that sergeant's position is not actually competent. So what they do is that they promote them out now to a warrants position or a petty officer position in the Navy, and they get posted somewhere else. Now, this is a very senior leader position when you think about it. And what's happening is that they get promoted out of the position, and now they achieve a position of the highest level of leadership, and that's where they can actually start doing some damage. But it's very short-sighted. Now, to get back at this, while incompetence is merely a barrier to further promotion, super incompetence is ground for dismissal, as is supercompetence. In both cases, they tend to disrupt the hierarchy. One specific example that they said in the book of a super competent employee is a teacher of children with special needs. He was so effective at educating the children that after a year, they exceeded all expectation at reading and arithmetic. But then the teacher was still fired because he had neglected to devote enough time to bead stringing and finger painting. Can you believe that? Being fired because you didn't do finger painting. So, and then continuing on with chapter 4 and 5 deal with the two methods of achieving promotion, push and pull. Push refers to the employee's own efforts, such as working hard and taking courses for self-improvement. That is usually not very effective due to seniority factor. The next level up is often fully occupied, blocking the path to promotion, which I prefer to call deadwood at the top, right? The people that just sit there until retirement or all these things. Now, the next one is the pull. On the other hand, is far more effective and refers to accelerated promotion brought about by the effort of an employee's mentors or patron. In the military, you call this advanced promotion. You've seen it everywhere where people bring their teams with them as well. Chapter 6 explains why good followers do not become good leaders. In chapter 7, Peter and Hall describes the effect of the principle in politics and government, which is hilarious. Chapter 8, titled Hints and Foreshadowing, discusses the work of earlier writers on the subject of incompetence, such as Sigmund Freud, Karl Marx, Alexander Pope. Chapter 9 here explains that once the employees have reached a level of incompetence, they always lack the insight into their situation. Peter and Hall go on to explain why aptitude tests do not work and are actually counterproductive. Finally, they describe the Summit Competence, right? We've seen this in CEOs and leaders, the Jeff Bezos, the Bill Gates, all these guys, when someone reaches the highest level in their organization and yet is still competent at that level. Now, this is only because there were not enough ranks in the hierarchy or because they did not have time to reach a level of incompetence. Such people also often seek a level of incompetence in another hierarchy. This is known as compulsive incompetence. For example, Socrates was an outstanding teacher, but a terrible defense attorney. Then with the book, once again, chapter 10 explains why attempts to assist an incompetent employee by promoting another employee to act as their assistant does not work. Incompetence plus incompetence equals incompetence. Now, I just recently heard from one of my clients that their company had just promoted an incredible salesperson to a management position of their department. And in turn, that person brought their friend to be their second in command, and things are not going well, right? We've seen that many, many times. Chapter 11 and 12 describes the various medical and psychological manifestations of stress that may come as a result of someone reaching their level of incompetence, as well as other symptoms such as certain characteristic habits in speech or behaviors. Chapter 13 considers whether it is possible for an employee who has reached a level of incompetence to be happy and healthy once they get there. And basically the answer is no if the person realizes their true situation, and yes if the person does not. Now, various ways of avoiding promotion to the final level are described in Chapter 14. Attempting to refuse an offered promotion is ill-advised and is only practical if the employee is not married or has no one else to answer to. Generally, it's better to avoid being considered for a promotion in the first place by pretending to be incompetent while one is actually still employed at the level of competence. Well, now we're doing some really hard juggling about what it is, but I've seen it as well in the military of people that never wanted to get promoted. This is creative incompetence, for which several examples of successful techniques are given. It usually works best if the chosen field of incompetence does not actually impair one's work. The concluding chapter applies Peter's principle to the entire human species at an evolutionary level and asks whether humanity can survive in the long run or will it become extinct upon reaching its level of incompetence as technology advances. That was written in 1969, guys. Other commenters made observations similar to the Peter Principle long before Peter's research. Now, bear with me here. There's some pretty crazy words here. Gotthold Ephraim Lessing, in 1963, his play, Mina von Barnhelm, features an army sergeant who shuns the opportunity to move up in the ranks, saying, "I'm a good sergeant. I might easily make a bad captain, and certainly even a worse general. One knows from experience." Similarly, Karl von Clausewitz, in 1780 to 1831, wrote that there is nothing more common than to hear of men losing their energy on being raised to a higher position to which they do not feel themselves equal. Spanish philosopher Jose Ortega y Gasset, in 1983, virtually enunciated the Peter Principle in 1910. All public employees should be demoted to their immediately lower level as they have been found incompetent at this level. A number of scholars have engaged in research interpreting the Peter's Principle and its effects. In 2000, Edward Lazier explored two possible explanations for the phenomenon. First is the idea that employees work harder to gain a promotion and then slack off when it is achieved. The other is that it is a statistical process. Workers who are promoted have passed a particular benchmark of productivity based on factors that cannot necessarily be replicated in their new role, leading to a Peter Principle situation. Lazier concluded that the former explanation only occurs under particular compensation structures, whereas the later always holds up. Alessandro Pulcino, Andrea Repisarda, and Cesar Garofalo in 2010 used an agent-based modeling approach to simulate the promotion of employees in a system where the Peter Principle is assumed to be true. They found that the best way to improve efficiency in an enterprise is to promote people randomly or to shortlist the best and the worst performer in any given group from which the person to be promoted is then selected randomly. For this work, they won the 2010 edition of the Parity IG Nobel Prize in Management Science. In 2018, Professor Alan Benson, Daniel Lee, and Kelly Shu analyzed sales workers' performance and promotion practices at 214 American businesses to test the veracity of the Peter Principle. They found that these companies tended to promote employees to a management position based on their performance in their previous position rather than based on managerial potential. Consistent with the Peter Principle, the researchers found that high-performing sales employees were likelier to be promoted and that they were likelier to perform poorly as managers, leading to considerable cost to the businesses. The Peter Principle inspired Scott Adams, creator of the comic strip Dilbert, to develop, it's a hard word to say for me for some reason, to develop a similar concept, the Dilbert Principle. The Dilbert Principle holds that incompetent employees are promoted to management positions to get them out of the workflow. The idea was explained by Adams in his 1996 business book, The Dilbert Principle, and it has since been analyzed alongside the Peter Principle. Jose Ricardo Faria wrote that the Dilbert Principle is a suboptimal version of the Peter Principle and leads to even lower profitability than the Peter Principle. Now, the response by organizations. Companies and organizations shape their policies to contend with the Peter Principle. Now, remember, Lazier stated that some companies expect that productivity will regress to the mean following promotion in their hiring and promotion practices. Other companies have adopted up or out strategies, such as the cravat system, in which employees who do not advance are periodically fired. The cravat system was developed by the law firm Cravat, Swaine & Moore, which made a practice of hiring chiefly recent law graduates, promoting internally, and firing employees who do not perform at the required level. Brian Christian and Tom Griffith have suggested the additive increase, multiplicative decrease algorithm as a solution to the Peter Principles, less severe than firing employees who fail to advance. They propose a dynamic hierarchy in which employees are regularly either promoted or reassigned to a lower level so that any worker who is promoted to their point of failure is soon moved to an area where they are productive. Now, this has been incredible, right? Learning from the Peter Principle was so crucial for me on how I was going to reach higher levels and also brought into reality my own skills and my whole competence or incompetence. At one point, we will reach incompetence if we don't work on our skills, or maybe we're just chasing that next level. So what do you think about all of this? Is this something that does apply? Have you seen this? Have you experienced this in your workplace? But more importantly, what I want to know is, how does the Peter Principle affect the way that you're going to look at promotion going forward? Like I said, for me, it made me want to learn skills and prepare in advance for the next level, right? Now, I hope that you enjoyed and learned a lot on today's episode. If you did like it, please subscribe, share, and comment below. Let us know your thoughts of the Peter Principle. Also, let us know what theory or topic you'd like to learn about. Now, my name is Bruno Guevramont, and I hope to see you in the next episode of The Battle Plan.